Your grandparents had muscles that lasted into their 80s, and they never once bought a tub of creatine powder. They ate cheap, humble food straight from the butcher barrel and the tin can, and their skeletal muscle held strong through decades of physical labor that would floor most modern adults. Here is what nobody tells you. The most creatine-dense foods on Earth are not sold in supplement stores. They are sitting in your grocery aisle for pennies, and they have been there the entire time. Researchers at institutions like McMaster University and the University of Exeter have now confirmed that whole food creatine sources outperform isolated powder in measurable ways. Before we begin, tell us in the comments what cheap, everyday food you remember from your childhood that seemed to keep everyone strong and lean without trying. We are reading and replying to every single comment with personalized tips for your situation. Now, let us go back in time to fix your muscles, starting with number 7. Number 7, the hidden creatine pool, chicken thighs. There is a protein sitting in almost every senior's refrigerator right now that nobody associates with creatine. Not fish, not organ meat, not anything unusual. Chicken thighs. The cut most people buy on autopilot, cook without thinking, and never once consider has a creatine delivery mechanism. That is a significant oversight because dark chicken meat contains approximately 3.4 grams of creatine per kilogram of raw flesh, meaningfully higher than chicken breast. The reason is biological. The thigh is built from slow-twitch oxidative muscle fibers that sustain continuous low-level locomotion throughout the animal's entire life. Those fibers self-concentrate phosphocreatine to meet their constant energy demand, exactly the way cardiac muscle does, just at a lower intensity. The higher myoglobin content in dark meat also protects creatine from thermal degradation during cooking. But here is where most seniors unknowingly discard the most valuable part. Boiling or slow cooking chicken thighs in liquid preserves the creatine inside the broth itself. Researchers at the University of Copenhagen confirmed that low heat, moist cooking methods retain up to 80% of raw creatine content in poultry, compared to just 50 to 65% in grilled or roasted preparations. That means a senior who simmers chicken thighs in a soup and drinks the broth is recovering the full creatine yield of the entire cut, grilling it and discarding the drippings cuts that yield nearly in half. This matters because for seniors who are not ready to eat pickled herring or beef heart, chicken thighs are the most accessible on-ramp to serious dietary creatine loading available anywhere. At under 60 cents per thigh, it is also the most budget-friendly creatine source on this entire list. You do not need to change what you eat. You need to change how you cook it and what you do with the liquid afterwards. Simmer your thighs. Drink your broth. You are already halfway there. Number 6, the creatine steak, grass-fed beef flank. Most seniors who eat red meat weekly have never been told that the cut they choose matters as much as the food itself. Not the seasoning, not the cooking time, but the specific cut, and specifically where that animal spent its life before it reached the butcher. Grass-fed beef flank contains approximately 4.5 to 5 grams of creatine per kilogram, placing it among the highest creatine concentrations of any retail beef cut you can walk in and purchase today. But the creatine content is not what separates it from everything else in the beef case. It is the lipid environment surrounding that creatine. Grain-fed beef carries an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of approximately 20:1. That ratio drives prostaglandin-mediated inflammation that directly accelerates both sarcopenia and arterial stiffening in aging tissue. It means the creatine arrives inside an inflammatory biological environment that competes with the very muscle repair it is supposed to support. Grass-fed flank reverses that ratio to approximately 3:1. The anti-inflammatory lipid profile now supports muscle repair rather than undermining it. Additionally, grass-fed beef carries conjugated linoleic acid at 2 to 3 times the concentration of grain-fed equivalents. A randomized trial published in the Journal of Nutrition demonstrated that CLA supplementation over 12 months produced measurable reductions in fat mass and preserved lean tissue in older adults. In grass-fed flank, that CLA arrives alongside the creatine automatically, no additional supplementation required. For a senior already eating red meat once or twice per week, switching from a grain-fed sirloin to a grass-fed flank steak is the highest leverage single grocery decision available. Zero behavioral change, one different label, completely different biochemical outcome for aging muscle. That is the kind of precision that makes the difference between eating red meat and actually using it. Now we go to the ocean, because the next one introduces a mechanism most people have never heard of. Number 5. The ocean floor creatine, fresh calamari. Mediterranean coastal communities have eaten calamari as an everyday protein for centuries. Not a restaurant dish, not a special occasion, but a Tuesday, grilled over charcoal, simmered in tomato sauce, sautéed with garlic and olive oil. Eaten the way Americans eat chicken. What those fishing communities never understood, and what modern cellular biology has now confirmed, is that squid flesh contains approximately 5 grams of creatine per kilogram of raw tissue, placing it directly alongside the most creatine-dense fish on this list. But the creatine content alone is not what makes calamari worth discussing. It is what calamari carries alongside it. Fresh squid contains approximately 150 to 300 milligrams of taurine per 100 gram serving, one of the highest natural taurine concentrations found in any commonly eaten food. And taurine is not a bonus nutrient. For seniors specifically, it is the difference between creatine that loads into muscle and creatine that passes through. Here is why. Creatine retention inside a muscle cell depends entirely on intracellular hydration, which is regulated by taurine-driven osmotic balance. Without adequate taurine inside the cell, the membrane cannot maintain the volume required to retain phosphocreatine after absorption. The creatine enters and leaks back out. Researchers at Kyung University confirmed that taurine supplementation significantly enhanced creatine retention in aging skeletal muscle and improved physical performance markers in older adults. Calamari delivers both compounds simultaneously in a single food. It is also extraordinarily lean, at under 1.5 grams of fat per 100 grams serving, meaning it poses zero cardiovascular conflict for seniors on cholesterol-restricted diets. Most grocery stores carry fresh or frozen calamari rings year-round. A quick sauté in olive oil with lemon and garlic takes under 4 minutes. What you are doing in those 4 minutes is loading your muscles with creatine and then locking that creatine inside the cell with the same bite. That is not a supplement stack. That is dinner. Number 4, the slow-burn creatine source, venison jerky. During the Great Depression, venison was not a delicacy. It was survival protein. Rural and working-class families across America hunted white-tailed deer freely, and drying the meat into jerky was the most practical preservation method available, costing nothing beyond the time and smoke required. Nobody was counting creatine content when they packed that jerky into a lunch pail, but their muscles were quietly receiving one of the most concentrated portable creatine sources ever consumed by a working adult. Raw venison contains approximately 4.5 to 5 grams of creatine per kilogram of flesh, and the dehydration process concentrates that content further per gram of final dry product. You are left with a portable, shelf-stable food that delivers meaningful creatine in every small handful. Now here is where it gets interesting for seniors specifically. Most high-creatine foods arrive packaged alongside saturated fat that conflicts directly with cardiometabolic health guidelines. Venison resolves that conflict entirely. It is one of the leanest mammalian proteins available on Earth, carrying less than 2 grams of fat per 100 gram serving, which makes it the only high-creatine dried red meat that poses zero conflict with heart disease management or high cholesterol protocols. But the creatine density is only part of the story. Venison carries a superior leucine to calorie ratio compared to any commercially farmed muscle meat. Leucine is the specific amino acid that triggers mTOR, which is the primary anabolic signaling pathway responsible for initiating muscle protein synthesis in skeletal tissue. Researchers at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences confirmed that leucine-enriched complete protein sources consumed by adults over 60 produced significantly greater muscle protein synthesis responses than lower leucine equivalents, meaning the protein quality in venison directly amplifies the downstream effect of its creatine content. These two mechanisms operate simultaneously in the same bite. For a senior managing cardiovascular risk while trying to preserve lean muscle mass, venison jerky is the only creatine-rich red meat that serves both goals without compromise. Look for minimally processed venison jerky with no added sugar and low sodium at specialty retailers, hunting supply stores, or online. A 2-ounce serving consumed mid-afternoon delivers creatine, leucine, and complete amino acids without requiring any preparation at all. Number 3. The creatine capsule, pickled herring. Walk into any Depression-era general store along the eastern seaboard or in the Scandinavian immigrant communities of the Midwest, and you would find wooden barrels of pickled herring sitting near the entrance. It was sold by the ladle for a few pennies per serving, preserved in brine and vinegar, and eaten by working men and women who had no idea they were consuming one of the highest natural concentrations of creatine available in any food on the planet. Herring contains approximately 6.5 to 10 grams of creatine per kilogram of raw flesh, which is the highest concentration found in any commonly available fish. A single 2 tablespoon serving of pickled herring delivers creatine on par with, or directly exceeding, a standard 3 to 5 gram powder scoop. Most people do not know this, but the pickling process preserves creatine content almost entirely, unlike high-heat cooking methods that degrade it significantly by oxidizing the guanidino group. This is huge because it means you are getting maximum creatine yield from every single serving without any thermal degradation at all. Now, here is the critical part that no supplement company will ever explain to you. Creatine is not merely a gym supplement for seniors. It is a cellular energy currency stored in skeletal muscle as phosphocreatine, which regenerates ADP during any burst of physical effort, from rising out of a chair to catching a stumble before it becomes a fall. Researchers at McMaster University confirmed that creatine supplementation in adults over 65 produced significant improvements in muscle strength, lean mass, and functional task performance compared to placebo, with the greatest benefits appearing in lower body power, which is the exact physical capacity that determines fall risk in older adults. Because creatine from whole pickled herring is absorbed alongside a natural food matrix that includes taurine, omega-3 fatty acids, and selenium, the anabolic signaling response is broader than from isolated powder. The taurine in herring specifically supports cell volumization, which is the same mechanism that creatine loading exploits when consumed as a supplement. You are getting the full biochemical context in a single food, at roughly 10 cents per serving from bulk, canned, or jarred sources. Pickled herring is the most creatine-dense food per dollar on this entire list. Keep a jar in the refrigerator and consume 2 tablespoons directly or with rye crackers at any meal. Now, get ready, because this next one is even more powerful and introduces a mechanism that most cardiologists have never discussed with their senior patients. Number 2, the organ powerhouse, beef heart. During the Depression and through the Second World War, whole animal butchery was not a trend, it was economic necessity. Every part of the animal was sold and cooked, and organ meats were prized above all because they were the cheapest cuts at the butcher and the most nutrient-dense food a working family could afford. Beef heart was a weekly staple in millions of American households, braised slowly with onions, sliced thin, and served over potatoes. Nobody called it a superfood, they just knew it kept them going. Today we understand exactly why beef heart is the single highest creatine organ meat available, containing approximately 2.5 grams of creatine per 100 gram serving. But here is the shocking part. It simultaneously delivers the most concentrated natural source of CoQ10 found in any food on Earth. And that combination makes it uniquely superior to skeletal muscle cuts for senior cardiovascular and muscular health in ways that no isolated supplement can replicate. Cardiac muscle tissue must sustain constant, uninterrupted ADP regeneration across an entire lifetime, which is why the heart self-concentrates both creatine and CoQ10 at levels far exceeding any skeletal muscle cut. When seniors consume beef heart, they receive both the phosphocreatine substrate for muscle energy and CoQ10, which is the mitochondrial electron transport chain coactor that converts that substrate into usable ADP at the cellular level. This distinction matters enormously because statin medications, prescribed to an estimated 56% of adults over 65, according to CDC data, deplete CoQ10 by blocking the mevalonate pathway that synthesizes it, creating a functional energy deficit in both cardiac and skeletal muscle that most patients never connect to their medication. Beef heart directly replenishes both depleted compounds simultaneously in a single food. A study published in Nutrition confirmed that dietary CoQ10 from food sources produced measurable increases in plasma CoQ10 levels and reduced markers of oxidative muscle damage in older adults, with cardiac tissue-derived sources showing superior bioavailability compared to synthetic supplement forms. One 100-gram serving of beef heart costs approximately 50 to 80 cents at most butchers, making it the most nutritionally complete item on this list per dollar spent. Ask your local butcher to set aside heart for you, as it is rarely displayed on the counter. Slice it thin, sear it quickly in a hot pan with olive oil and garlic for 3 to 4 minutes per side, and serve it like any lean steak. But that is nothing compared to number 1, because the final food on this list does something no other creatine source can match. Number 1, the Wild Creatine Factory. Wild-caught sardines in water. Sardines fed an entire generation through the worst economic collapse in American history. During the Depression, a tin of sardines cost pennies and could be eaten straight from the can by a farmer, a factory worker, or a soldier, without a plate, a fork, or a flame. They were the universal protein food of the working poor, consumed across every income level because they were available everywhere and cost almost nothing. What kept those bodies functional through years of hard physical labor, we now understand, was not willpower or superior genetics. It was the extraordinary biochemical completeness packed inside every tin. Wild-caught sardines packed in water contain approximately 4.5 grams of creatine per kilogram, alongside the complete coactor stack required for creatine to function at maximum efficiency in aging muscle. Omega-3 fatty acids in the form of EPA and DHA, vitamin D, calcium, selenium, and taurine, all in a single food that requires no cooking, no refrigeration until opened, and costs as little as 89 cents per tin. This is huge because creatine supplementation in isolation has a well-documented absorption ceiling. Without adequate insulin sensitivity and muscle cell hydration, phosphocreatine loading in aging tissue is incomplete. Sardines solve this problem at the food level because their omega-3 content directly improves insulin-mediated creatine transport into muscle cells by enhancing GLUT4 transporter expression, which is the same mechanism by which fish oil amplifies creatine powder efficacy when the two are combined as separate supplements. In a sardine tin, that amplification is built into the food itself. Sardines are functionally a self-amplifying creatine source because the fat improves the uptake of the creatine present in the same single bite. Vitamin D, present at approximately 12 micrograms per tin, meeting roughly 60% of the senior daily requirement, further amplifies creatine's anabolic effect because vitamin D receptors on muscle satellite cells regulate the proliferative response to creatine-driven ADP availability. A landmark meta-analysis from the University of Exeter confirmed that combined omega-3 and creatine intake produced significantly greater gains in muscle mass and functional strength in older adults than creatine alone, validating the whole food sardine matrix as mechanistically superior to isolated powder in every measurable way. For a senior who takes no supplements, eats no organ meats, and has limited cooking ability, 1 tin of wild-caught sardines in water per day is the single highest impact creatine intervention available. Drain the tin, add a squeeze of lemon and a pinch of black pepper, and eat it with whole grain crackers or over a small bed of greens. Start with 1 tin 4 days per week and build to daily use over 3 weeks as your palate adjusts. Your body was built to run on real food. And the science now confirms that the ancestors who ate from tin cans and butcher barrels were not making do with inferior nutrition. They were accidentally eating in perfect alignment with the biochemistry of aging muscle. Venison jerky delivered concentrated creatine with 0 cardiovascular conflict. Pickled herring matched the output of an entire powder scoop for 10 cents. Beef heart replenished the exact compounds that modern medications quietly steal. And sardines delivered creatine alongside the full coactor system required to actually use it. Not one of these foods requires a prescription, a blender, or more than 90 seconds of preparation. They require only the decision to start. Your muscle tissue responds to what you give it, regardless of your age, and the evidence for that is sitting in grocery stores and butcher cases right now. You have more biological leverage than you have been told. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these 4 forgotten creatine powerhouses are you going to add to your routine first? And have you ever eaten any of them without knowing what they were actually doing for your body? Share your answer in the comments below because we read every single one. Stay strong. Keep moving, and we will see you in the next video.